Hello and welcome to this Fane Online event, a live stream with Armistead Maupin in conversation with Ian McKellen. I'm Patrick Strudwick, your host, and I will be probing our guests, possibly inappropriately, for the next hour or so. For those of us joining today live on August the 12th, hello and welcome, and for those of you joining us over the next 48 hours or so, a huge welcome to you too. Today's conversation is between two of Britain's most loved people. Armistead Maupin is one of our most esteemed writers, our adopted son, if you will, and Ian McKellen, one of the world's greatest actors. Long-time friends, they're also long-term advocates for LGBT people, and for the last 4 months, they've been hunkering down in London as the COVID pandemic has struck. So, first of all, let's talk lockdown. How have you both been coping?
Well, I'm fine, except I'm on the opposite side of the river as Ian. I think we both are okay with it. You speak for yourself, but I like hanging out at the house, and I have a novel that I'm supposed to be writing, so I don't have any excuses not to write it.
And what the hell is the hero of San Francisco, the chronicler of San Francisco, the man who left his home in the south of America to go and live in the south of the States to go and live in San Francisco? The hell are you doing living in London? And you called him a Brit? I love the idea, but...
I do too.
So, come on, this is quite recent, isn't it?
I've been here for a year. As you know, I camped out at your house for the first month.
And what scandal were you escaping in San Francisco?
Well, the scandal of too many rich people in too small a space. Everything was so expensive, and
really,
and I felt I'd done it. I mean, there are people that bemoan the loss of bohemian life in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I suddenly kind of became one of them.
Yes.
And you know, I've loved London for a long time.
Well, and you've written about it.
I've written about it. Yeah.
Shore of You, was that not set in?
It's that's the one that's dedicated to you.
I know. I wasn't going to say. I have one book of Tales of the City dedicated to.
Well, it was published when you were coming out and
yes.
and making a big difference.
Yes. Thanks to you. Because Armistead is my godfather, really. But I was in America. I'm not sure what I was doing and how long ago it was. 20 years ago? 30 years ago?
40.
Oh, gee.
We're old bitches, honey. Practically early 80s.
Okay. Anyway, I was there, and by chance, a mutual friend introduced us. Isn't that right? And we got on immediately. How could you not get on with Armistead?
Well, that's possible.
I
couldn't believe you'd landed on my doorstep.
Yes.
It was so much fun. We drove around in my little Volkswagen with Sean Matthias, your partner at the time.
Yes, and you gave us a tour of the film spots in San Francisco.
I did. I realized I was annoying.
This is where Marilyn Monroe was married. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And where Kim Novak jumped into the bay in Vertigo. And,
yes.
And at one point you said to me, "What's the matter? Was nothing filmed here?" And I realized it was a bit of a sore point because you weren't a global movie star at the time.
No. But
you
I
care
was
of that.
Inside a frightened little lad meeting a man who was so at ease with being himself and openly gay with his partner at the time, Terry. And I just fell into a world I'd, I think, only dreamt of, where to be oneself was accepted and as the only way to be. And rather casually, but heartfelt, I said to Armistead one night, "Do you think I should come out?" Not that I think I'd ever been totally in, although everybody says this, don't they? Oh, I wasn't really ever in the closet.
Yeah.
No, I was firmly, actually. In that I didn't talk about it. It didn't seem to be a big part of my public life. And you said, I remember you looking at Terry and smiling.
We've got a
whoa, we've got another one on the end of the line.
But it very rarely happened. I mean, I scared away a number of well-known actors by
Yes.
pushing that agenda.
Like who?
Well, I can't name them because they're still alive.
And they're still in the closet?
It depends on who you ask.
Yes, that's the trouble.
You know how it
isn't
is.
That's the trouble.
They're either being careful about it or they're not. I mean, now there are these people like Luke Evans, who publishes a beautiful picture of his ass standing in a shower in Instagram, you know.
Yes.
And you know who the handsome boyfriend is, and they celebrate their life and love together. He came to your birthday party. I was thrilled.
He sang for me, yes. And what about him?
Well, I mean, there are those actors that
I see.
that for whom it comes naturally now. They've made that decision.
Yes, that's
that they're going to be honest about their life.
Yeah.
And,
But it was has linked me to Armistead ever since, and wasn't I the luckiest boy in the world, really, to have that meeting? I think I was sort of ready, but you just held out. It wasn't a push you gave me.
You asked.
You held out a hand to me, and pulled me into the real world.
You were ready.
Yes.
You knew what you wanted to do, and
Yes.
you wanted an endorsement, and we were more than happy to give it.
Yes, that's right.
Armistead, I wonder what the difference was in Ian that you noticed pre and post coming out.
Well, I saw things in Ian. I remember visiting before you came out, your house in Narrow Street, and there was a party going on
Yeah.
out on the deck,
Yes.
the way you still do it.
Yeah.
And Philip Sayre, who was an actor, was there, and a friend of yours. And he sort of had his head in your lap, and you were just kind of stroking his hair idly. And I thought, he's an affectionate man, and he expresses it to his friends, and it's a lovely thing. And I thought that was an idyllic scenario.
But did you notice a change in Ian after he came out?
But you hadn't really known me before I came out.
I hadn't known you well before at all. I saw him get the fire in terms of his activism. He was just constantly astounding me. I remember getting the word that you had come out on that radio show with Peregrine Worsthorne.
That's right. Yeah, yes.
tell, I just like saying Peregrine Worsthorne.
Worsthorne, yes. Yes, I came out on a number of occasions. I've now realised, but that was the big one.
Yeah.
Discussing Section 28, which was a nasty little law that the Thatcher government was introducing here to stop people talking about gay people in schools, basically. And I took offence at this in the course of saying why. I said that I was gay myself, and Peregrine Worsthorne, who was the editor, I think, of the Sunday Telegraph at the time, rather poo-pooed all this, but he said that, did I know that there are all sorts of clubs, private clubs in the West End of London, where we are right now, where gay people gathered together. And I said, you mean like the Garrick Club, which is an ultra-respectable gentleman's club that I knew Peregrine Worsthorne would like to have been a member of if he wasn't. And that did rather shut him up. But the irony of it was that when I got my knighthood, which was subsequent to having come out, I'm glad it was that way around and that I wasn't honoured before I told people. Standing next to me to get his knighthood was Peregrine Worsthorne.
Oh, really?
So it's British balance. You'll get used to it. You know, you give with one hand and you take away with the other.
And your knighthood was.
Well, it wasn't for. It was for being an actor rather than anything else.
But you're a member of the something of honor, and that was for activism.
I'm a companion of honor.
A companion of honor.
Yes, there are just 65 of us. You have to wait for someone to die to be recruited. It's a very distinguished list with a few mistakes, but some, people like Bernard Shaw.
Not a bad one.
Yeah. Elgar, the composer, I think that. But also Norman Tebbit, who's an English politician with politics that I don't much care
Not the
for.
most pro-gay of politicians.
No. Yes, but that I think, yes, that was for, yes, curious for equality and services to equality and to
And
drama.
theatre.
Yes, that was a nice accolade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good combo.
The wording of your coming out seems incredibly contemporary now when you listen back to that interview, because what you did was you actually came out in parenthesis, which I thought was kind of wonderful. You sort of, it was sort of like homosexuals as am I, and sort of carried on talking. It wasn't a big Instagram statement of someone, professing and confessing.
Well, look, the argument that we were having was much more important than me or him. But yes, but I think actually I came out in the United States. I was getting an award in Boston, where some very nice relatives of mine lived, and they were in the audience. And knowing that, I came out.
Well, you never stop, really, do you?
But no, you don't ever stop.
Every time you meet a stranger and somebody asks if you're going to be with your wife now,
Do you remember in the old days when we used to get taxis, when we waved and the car stopped and you got inside it and you weren't wearing a mask? Remember those days?
Oh, yes, I remember how that was.
Well, when the taxi driver starts talking from you and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and he asks you, have you got any grandchildren? And you think, oh my God. Am I going to have to explain to him that at a time when I might have had a child and to produce children, I couldn't? And you think, oh yes, and you say, no, I'm gay, fearing the reaction. And then the taxi driver turns around and gives you a wink and so am I, mate. So, I mean...
Yeah, there you go.
It's good to keep coming out because the reaction is usually very positive, I find.
When I first did, back in the 70s, it was so exhilarating to me that I was coming out to taxi drivers and anybody that wanted to hear it, you know.
But San Francisco was a sort of haven, was it?
Yeah.
It was the one place in the States where you could feel comfortable.
This woman that I become friends with, who was a married woman with a couple of kids, I decided I was going to tell her, and I had 2 Mai Tais one night. Just got shit-faced and went to her.
What's a Mai Tai?
It's a Polynesian delight.
Can we have one later on?
Oh, I'd love to. I was thinking about ordering it.
It's a drink, it's not a person.
It's a cocktail, a very 70s cocktail.
It was 40s. It was invented when I was
think
born.
of it as a Tales of the City cocktail.
Well, it's because Franny...
Dee Dee and Franny drink Mai Tais.
That's the reason.
Right. You made them famous.
I'm the reason they drank Mai Tais.
All the characters in Tales of the City are fed off Armistead's experience of life.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. So San Francisco, as opposed to now, was then a special place where you just felt it was okay.
I was going to come out to this woman, and I had to get drunk to do it.
Did you?
And I finally said I'd change this if I could. I can't believe I said that, but I said it then. That's where I was in life.
Yes.
But this is the way it is, and I'm
Santa Claus.
Yeah, Santa Claus. And she looked at me like, what is the world is the matter? And I finally said, I'm gay. And she came over and she took both of my hands in hers and said, big fucking deal. Half this town is gay.
Oh.
And it was, a huge relief from a straight lady.
Now, you mispronounced the word. It's the first thing I had when I came out from a friend who was also closeted, telling me it isn't homosexual.
Homosexual.
It's homo. It's homo is from the Greek, not homo. It's nothing to do with being a man. It's to do with being the same. And if I may say, I'm not sure you pronounced Armistead's second name correctly. Should we just hear how it should be pronounced?
Maupin.
That's what I said.
Some
people say Maupin.
You said Maupin. He says Maupin. It's a sort of...
I didn't hear the difference.
But if you're not going to
Patrick's
stick
known me
up,
for a while.
I think we'll cut this a little bit. But many people don't know how to say his name, and I just want to ask him, how the hell did you land up with a name like Armistead Maupin?
Well, Armistead Maupin Sr.
Oh.
My father.
You're the second?
Yeah.
Of course.
And it's, Southern family. all these Confederates that we're hearing about now who've been wronged by having their monuments taken down. Very much ruined my life.
Armistead has always been a first name, has it?
In my family,
Yes.
or a middle name, is if you were a girl, you would call Mary Armistead.
Have you met anyone else called Armistead?
One or two, but
Have you?
Facebook does that to you.
But I bet there are lots of dogs and cats and pets called Armistead all over the place.
I've been told.
Yes, that's lovely.
I'm sure you have a few yourself.
What was she, the woman who wrote that, the book about the, Suzanne, Jacqueline Suzanne, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
She wrote dreadful novels. Well, she named her dog after me.
Did she?
Ian, yes. Yes, when I was not well known, but she came to see me in a plane and called her dog Ian. Wasn't that
Oh,
nice?
that's very sweet.
Yes. Anyway, we're talking about you.
Oh, no, that's something I didn't know.
I imagine, Armistead, that lots of British people say Maupin. Because
They do.
We see
Yeah.
the spelling and we think the French.
Yes,
do.
that's right. Yeah. But Maupin is where? Where are they from? What's that?
They're from France originally.
yes,
It
of
was a
course.
Huguenot,
Yes, yes.
who opened a saloon in Williamsburg. And there was still a Maupin tavern there.
Yes.
But yeah, French. I answered a Maupin in Paris.
Do you speak
with great
French? Do you
delight.
speak French?
Not enough.
Have you been learning Portuguese during the lockdown?
No. Have you? I'm never going to.
I sat down to learn Italian one day. The day that I gave up playing the piano and lots of other things I was going to do.
You've got a wonderful piano there too.
I know. It's other people who play it in good time. Yes.
How far did you get with the piano?
The theme from Dvorak's New World Symphony.
Yeah.
First played where? Where did it have its first performance?
I have no idea.
New World Symphony. Carnegie Hall.
Oh, all right.
So what have you done during lockdown that you wouldn't otherwise have done?
Be more disciplined about my writing.
Terrific.
I'm eating very well, thanks to Chris.
Yes.
I mean, he's made it his project to become a cook, a chef.
Was he not before?
No.
Oh, I see.
I mean, he's often did the cooking, but he's gotten
Yes.
very serious about it.
And what was that tempting, tantalizing reference to more writing? Are you writing at the moment?
It's called Mona of the Manor.
Oh, bless.
It's set in 1993 when AIDS had just kicked the shit out of everybody here. So I'm getting to do a pandemic. I'm writing about a pandemic
Yes.
and reminding people that one happened before, and a lot of us felt it big time.
I'd lived through it, yes.
Who did you lose first?
Well, probably our mutual friend Kurt Dawson, American actor who I'd known when he was a drama student here, I think.
And he picked me up 10 years later.
Kurt was a boyfriend of yours, was he?
Yes, I
He
suppose.
kind of was, wasn't he?
Yes. He was many people's boyfriend.
He was,
A popular boy.
He was.
in '93, when Ian came and did his one-man show in New York, he talked about Kurt on stage, and I had to go back and say, it's not Kurt Dawson. It's amazing to have that link. It's one of the great things about being queer.
Yes.
You can both think, oh, yes, I was in love with that man.
Oh, well, I was, yes.
Yeah, and so was I.
Yeah.
He was very kind to me. He was too kind because I didn't know that he wasn't in love with me. He was just being sweet.
Yes,
But,
that was his nature.
Terrence, whom we just lost,
Yes.
came back and said to COVID, came back and said, I kind of raised his hand, said, "Me too."
Really? And I know others.
Yeah.
So yes, he was the first. I was in New York at the time when AIDS was just beginning to hit, and people were trying to understand it. And the rumor was, I suppose, conspiracy theories were alive then. It was the Reagan government that was pouring the virus through the air conditioning units into gay premises. It was one of the theories, wasn't it?
I don't think I ever heard about the air conditioning units, but
but it was a bafflement, wasn't it? And the work of others to get the world to take it seriously.
Many thousands died before Reagan mentioned the word AIDS publicly, and now we have Trump in charge of a new epidemic. I wondered what, for both of you, having lived through the AIDS crisis, what it's been like to witness a world galvanized to a large extent around this pandemic, whereas the previous one, there was inaction, there was denial, there was shaming, there was stigma. What's that contrast been like to witness?
I don't have pandemic envy. I mean, your pandemic was much better than ours, but it was. I mean, you know, guilt was laid on the victims of AIDS. Their families would, you know, found out they were gay and they were dying in one fell swoop, and it was horrid.
And initially, at any rate, it was identified with gay people. Nonsense, of course. It's a sexually transmitted disease that knew no bounds. But this pandemic it belongs to everybody. I mean, that's what's different.
Yeah.
And we are all going through it. And don't complain, because there are millions of people worse off than you, living in refugee camps, or living in inappropriate accommodation, or off the streets. So I think that's the extraordinary thing. And it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if the world would come together somehow, but it doesn't seem to be.
Doesn't look like it's happening.
No. But it will for some people. The crazy cocks.
Yes, we are in the crazy cocks,
Yes.
which couldn't be more, or perhaps less apt. And we should probably point out that this is a socially distanced and wipe clean environment that we're in.
Is it? Yes.
Has it been wiped clean?
Well, our seats were wiped clean, which is
Pretty good.
which is something. What do you both make of Boris Johnson's handling of this pandemic? How
Well, how
impressed
can we
are you?
possibly judge? I mean, I'm awfully glad I'm not Prime Minister. Oh, God. Can you imagine? I mean, whatever you do, you're going to get it wrong, probably, because there's no actual answer, is there?
I think in both countries, the waffling on what should be done about it has been the most demoralizing thing of all. Because people are prepared to listen and say, I will do this, I must do this. And I think Johnson's hesitation, I mean, cannot speak against one mini Trump in such a way that it acts like it's horrible, worse here than it is in America. America, I'm truly horrified about. But just crossing town today, all sorts of people, they're not expected to wear masks outdoors, but they were really huddled in places. And I guess if we were to walk into Soho, we'd find a big mob this weekend.
You know, you grub around in the news and comment and try and make sense of it. And recently there's been some suggestion that we should have locked down in the UK earlier than we did. And the reason we didn't was publicly stated at the time by many people that lockdown would have diminishing returns as people got impatient to get out of their houses, and suggesting that we didn't have the discipline and the far-sightedness that is meant to be part of the British characteristic. They underestimated people.
Yeah.
People are very happy to obey orders in this democracy if they see it's coming from a sensible place, and the government didn't quite trust us to be grown up. And then one of their people very close to the centre of power broke the laws, so perhaps they were right that there are some people who don't know how to behave.
Not a fan of Dominic Cummings?
Who is that?
The
He's the guy that went to visit his mum or something. What did he do?
yes, and to test his eyes, and that was the excuse.
He was caught
But
out.
it's interesting, isn't it, witnessing everyone respond to a pandemic when everyone my age and older does actually remember the AIDS epidemic. It's just that many people managed to get away with not being affected by it.
Yeah.
And so this is all new to them.
Yeah.
And that's a very strange thing that to see people suddenly going, oh, this pandemic, and they're 50 or 60 or 70, and you think, well, we've been here before. It's just that you were able to not pay attention because
Yeah.
There have been plenty of epidemics, and I suppose pandemics before in British history. I mean, the theatres that Shakespeare wrote for in the Elizabethan England were often closed down because of the plague. The plague. And the actors went on the road, and thank goodness they did, because before Shakespeare, when Shakespeare was still living in Stratford out in the countryside, one day the actors arrived because they couldn't play in London, and that's how Shakespeare came to see the theatre.
Oh, really?
And that's why he wrote about the theatre and wrote for the theatre. And if it hadn't been for the plague, the actors wouldn't have ever gone to Stratford.
Oh.
And another little story about the time James I, recently down from Scotland as king, the new king of England, very keen on the theatre, said, could he come and see a play? And he was told no, the actors weren't working because of the plague. He said, oh, we'll come to my place. So they all went over to the virus-clean palace and did the show there. And he said, how are you getting on for money? And they said, well, we don't know what we're going to do. So he gave them some money. Long history of authorities subsidising the arts, particularly under conditions like we're in today. So, and there are other stories of British history where the plague has played a big part. And so we're nothing special.
And you've just set
So
up...
what is the point of a virus?
What do you mean?
Well, it's alive and it wants to reproduce itself, does it?
Yeah.
That's all it seeks to do.
And then it wants to get inside a host where it feels comfortably and kill it. Now, that doesn't seem very sensible because you're going to die yourself if the host dies.
Well, mostly viruses don't want the host to die.
Don't
They all they wish to do is to reproduce, and that's why they mutate. So when drugs curtail the virus, that's often when they mutate because they need to find a new way of replicating. And Ian, you've just set up a fund for theatres in this country, in Britain, because of the COVID
well, no,
crisis.
I haven't, but I support others who do, yes. The entertainment business is as distraught as any other and needs help. And yes, so I've been doing a bit of help, but no, I haven't set anything up.
I see.
I've been laying low, yes.
But I mean, public money is needed, presumably, to keep theatre alive. I wonder what you think could be done.
Well, all I can do is be ready to work when it's safe to do so, and I hope audiences will want to get back to the theatre. I rather surprised myself by not having missed going to the theatre, which I do a lot. It's a hobby. It's a hobby of mine.
That was half the reason we came over here was, we'd be close to the theatre.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, well, that didn't work out, did it?
No.
Yes. So what else do you do for recreation apart from going to
Clapham
the theatre?
Common with the dog. I bought myself a little chair to set my big fat ass in.
That's good.
On the common, it's portable, and so we can go out there and hang out with the dog on these lovely summer afternoons.
But are you a gardener?
We have hired a gardener.
You've hired a gardener.
Who just got more likes on my Facebook page than I have ever received.
Well, I did see the photo.
I've got to show you.
Right.
He calls himself the Bear Gardener. B-E-A-R.
Like the Naked Chef.
Although everyone seems to be picturing B-A-R-E.
Yes.
He's a very strapping young man.
Excellent. So he's dealing with your dahlias.
Well, right now he's just pruning our foliage.
Deadheading.
He's deadheading.
Pruning your foliage. So you've got it sorted, haven't
Everybody else has made jokes.
You've got the strapping gardener in the garden. You've got the strapping husband in the kitchen. You've got the strapping dog to take for a walk.
Who's becoming an old man like me, so we're sort of relating in that way.
But thank goodness you're writing. Because, if you'd said, no, I just simply cannot write under these conditions, it would be awful. But you're feeling alive.
I've often written in times of stress.
Yes.
To get into my head.
I see.
I've done it when I wrote The Night Listener when I was breaking up with someone.
Yes.
And
wonderful story.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Are you writing longhand, or are you on a typewriter, an Olivetti?
I wish I could do something colorful.
So you're on a laptop?
Computer.
Like the rest of us?
A computer.
And do you have a spell
computer.
Correction on it, or do you know how to spell?
I mostly know how to spell.
Don't you find sometimes it corrects your spelling and gets it wrong?
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's infuriating, isn't it? All right. So you do it looking out of the window or looking inside yourself?
No,
can you describe what it's like?
It's just in the head. I don't know.
And they get talking and you can't stop.
And that's right.
Yeah.
I put them in the room together. I'm happy with who I'm with Mona Ramsey, who's now Lady Rawton.
Oh.
And and her 25-year-old Anglo-Aboriginal son, Wilfred. I can make them do anything.
You could bring him down to the garden, couldn't you, and have him working with the strapping gardener, gardener's mate. So it's all right then, is it, for you?
It is. I mean, I fantasize about travel again.
Yes.
So many places in England, in the UK that I want to go to, that we had planned to go to, because all you had to do was get on a train. And we did it a little bit at the beginning when I toured. Took the Philo on the train. That was a wonderful thing, to be able to take your dog on the train with you.
Yes.
And
have you ever been in a play? Have you ever acted? Been in a film?
I made my debut as one of the murdered children in Medea.
Oh dear.
I had to lie with my best friend with a bloody rag thrown over us because we were dead.
Yes.
And not giggle.
No words.
6 years old.
Do you know what it's called if you do giggle when you're pretending to be dead?
What?
Corpsing.
Really?
Have you never heard that expression?
No.
If an actor laughs inadvertently on stage, they've just corpsed. And it's because, of course, if you're playing a corpse, one thing you mustn't do is giggle.
Yeah, well,
that's
my theater experience.
But, I mean, you are often on public display, I mean, with a live audience and interacting, and you love it. How long have you loved that? Have you always been...
Ever since I've had it, which has not been too long, but yeah, basic show-off.
Yes.
It just killed me when I watched your one-man show. I thought, oh my God, I want to do that. Look how he moves around the stage.
Really? Yes. Yes.
But you want to be yourself rather than someone else.
I want to be myself.
Yes. Was it a version of yourself that you present to us?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe a version.
I mean, I don't think you could be criticized for that, because there are so many versions of yourself in the books. And anyone who knows you can recognize you in little corners of people's activities and things that they say and think and feel.
What about you with Hamlet?
What about me as Hamlet? Yes.
How old is he supposed to be?
My age.
That's a sore point.
No, it's not. I think it is the point.
I mean, 30?
That he'll be the oldest person ever to play Hamlet and make you think he's...
Though you'd be surprised. Michael Redgrave, Vanessa's father, played it when he was 54. Others have played Hamlet when they're in their 60s and 70s. Plenty of women have played Hamlet.
We should point out to anyone watching that you announced recently, Ian, that you're going to be playing Hamlet again for the first time in 50 years.
Yes. At the invitation of the director, Sean Mathias, who we've already mentioned, it would never have crossed my mind. But we had a table read. We met in COVID conditions quite recently for 2 weeks, rehearsal. And just head down, reading the text with other actors, I looked up one day and thought, I don't care what the colour of the person's skin is. I don't care what their age is. I don't care whether it's appropriate casting. What I just heard, and after all, people who go to the theatre are an audience, audio, that seemed the character. And we want to just look into whether it's how much we need to see what we're hearing. So it'll be interesting.
And how much?
And what a privilege to be allowed to just indulge yourself and read Hamlet, which is God, Hamlet says some wonderful things. He's so witty and so on the ball and so...
Did you want to make a...
Wish I'd known him.
Did you want to play Hamlet again because you were dissatisfied with how you played it 50 years ago?
Well, I didn't reckon I was any good, and nor did anybody else. My best notice was the best part of Ian McKellen's Hamlet is his curtain call.
Oh, God.
Which I may say was very good. But I would have liked them to have...
Were you in a codpiece at the time?
No, but the trousers were... Trousers...
Yeah.
I can't go into all this. We're talking about you.
No, I think we should talk about it.
But Ian, you've lived since
I have friends
then.
in San Francisco that have never forgotten when you rode on the back of you stood up on the back of a car in the Pride Parade.
Oh.
In white trousers.
What a day that was. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
To be allowed to be there and part of it all. Yes.
That's when I realized, I guess it was by then, exactly how far your fame had reached, when there were like 3 little African-American girls that chased him across the public square there, recognizing him as Gandalf.
Yes. It is funny. I go around with my mask on and sometimes dark glasses and a cap pulled down, and someone passing by says, "Hi, Magneto," and I think, well...
Jeez. Well, the mask helped. I guess it was sort of a superhero type thing. Droplets.
God. Droplets.
And it's 20 years now since,
Yeah.
almost 20 years since the first Lord of the Rings. That must be astonishing for that time to have just elapsed so quickly.
Yes. Yes, we filmed in 2000, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years.
Well, you know, time goes by.
It roars by when you're
So do you
our
think
age.
about death?
Yeah,
Yes.
I do.
That's the thing about us, our age. We do. And for the first 60 years of my life, nobody ever seemed to mention death. So if somebody died, it was a dreadful surprise and tragedy and but of course now it's everyday occurrence, isn't it? As people get ill and die. But I feel more positive about death than I used to. I don't.
Do you want
I'm not
to be
railing against the light.
Yeah.
And I hear from a number of people in enforced retirement on their own, what is life all about? And some of them say, well, you know, if I died today, I wouldn't mind, because it would mean I wasn't going to get ill and I wasn't going to be a burden on anybody, and I've done all right, better than all right.
Yeah, I feel appreciation for the life
Yes.
I've been able to live.
Yes.
Have you both thought about death more since COVID?
Well, we talked about this, how awful it would be. You say that there's a silver lining to that concept, that you're not with your friends. You can't be with your friends if you're dying. If they get sick, that's it. But Patrick did an interview with some doctor that talked about how people should know that that their loved ones are in loving hands.
Yes.
That there'll be some stranger there showing kindness and love. And there's comfort in that.
I was just reading the other day about the first Roman emperor, who was Augustus, and he put a lot of people to death. And I don't think we would like him these days. However, he did sort of set up the Roman Empire, and his dying words were, did I play my part well? Well, that's the sort of question an actor might ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or any of us might.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Have there been positives from lockdown for both of you? Have you been able to read more? Has there been more time for things that you've liked?
Go on.
I don't know, we have a routine in our day, and I rather like it. When we get up and pull the dog into bed with us and give him some early loving, when we settle down in front of the TV and watch Netflix, I like all that.
What are you binge watching? Ozark
Well, of course.
with
yeah.
Laura Linney. Your
Laura's
friend.
just been nominated for an Emmy, you know,
Sure.
for Ozark.
Good.
So envious when she and he were over here and together when you were shooting Mr. Holmes.
And Armistead was there, not this one. Laura's
Oh yes.
son, whose middle name is Armistead.
Little Armistead.
He's not so little anymore. He's 6 years old and he's like this. I'm doting from a distance.
And have you ever been broody to have children?
Have I ever been what?
Broody? Broody?
Broody to have children?
Well, like a hen gets broody.
Oh, no. I never.
Never.
Never. I like
Because Armistead
Being around.
Maupin, 50 years younger than you, might be all ready for marriage and settling down and having a family, mightn't he? As it's now legal and...
well, but I mean, when I was younger,
well, none of us... I thought the best thing about being gay was you didn't have to have children.
yeah, me too.
You were excused. But now...
No, I've never had it.
No.
I've come to love certain children,
yes.
but I don't want them full time.
Oh, no. Grandchildren who visit.
Not even grandchildren.
No, people who are of the grandchildren's
people's
age. Other
grandchildren.
people, yeah.
And you've been spending lockdown with Mona Ramsey, who is your main character in your book, who is a flighty, somewhat difficult character who's come in and out of the Tales series, and isn't necessarily always likable, but largely so. What's it been like to
It's funny
be?
when you're when you describe a character of mine, I get like, what are you going to say about her?
You're defensive of her. Because she runs away and she doesn't...
Oh yeah, she's constantly running away.
So what was it like to be in her head during lockdown, writing?
Well, she's landed in a manor house.
Perfect place for lockdown.
And she's very much her mother's daughter, Anna's daughter, in that she's taking in,
Waifs and strays.
Waifs and strays, and charges for people to come stay. And I've created a situation that I thought is potentially volatile, in that two of the tourists that have come to stay in the English manor house and have the manor house experience. The man is just finished doing the senatorial campaign of Senator Jesse Helms.
Mm-hmm.
He's a major homophobe, and they don't know they're in the house. There's a house full of queers, because Wilfred's queer and Mona's queer, and Lord Teddy, who's dead. I'm giving something away there, but are all, it's a thoroughly gay household, and they don't know it.
I just realized what you gave away.
Yeah.
We'll skirt over
in
that.
San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah. But it's fun being there. I don't know where it's going, but I didn't in the old days. I just have to keep reminding myself, well, what were you doing when you sat down at your desk at the Chronicle and did the next day's story? You just let things fly in and see what sticks.
Yes, because that's where tales began, not as novels, but as a daily
As a newspaper,
serial.
yeah.
And how far ahead were you? I mean,
I was writing Wednesday's column on a Monday, usually.
Oh, you read?
Uh-huh.
Could you cope now with that kind of
No.
deadline?
No.
Right.
I couldn't do it. I've become so much of a perfectionist in terms of what I approve of that goes down, that I'm just dragged. I wish I could get to that sort of feeling of letting it rip, but I'm not very good at it.
And Ian, I mean, does writing appeal to you? Would you like to do...
He's a beautiful writer. You are.
I like the discipline of trying to say exactly what I want to say in the shortest number of words, which means sometimes really just rooting around to find exactly the word that doesn't need any adjectives to explain itself. And there's a play I want to write. I've got two characters, and the trouble is I don't know how they meet. But I know that they ought to. They're real people. I won't say who they are. Do you know, you're
got me.
off... What? I'll tell you later.
So curious.
Yes. People think of Armistead as Dickensian. That's the word used about his writing. I suppose because Dickens' works were published initially as sort of a bit at a time.
Yeah, they were serially.
Serial, yeah. But actually, temperamentally, although Dickens was very, very alive to his surroundings, he didn't, as far as I know, though Miriam Margolis might contradict it, ever write about a gay person. I think she's identified a woman.
Does she think she knows one?
But what about Anton Chekhov? These are high compliments, Armistead, but when, of course, the young man who was Anton Chekhov, he died when he was 41 in Russia, had written 4 masterpieces for the theatre.
He was 41 when
Yes.
he died?
But before that, he had written for the newspaper comic columns.
Well, training.
And out of that, seeing the world in that way, he developed into writing the plays which say so much about life. And I think it's... Do you think there's a basic development out of the serial into the novel form, Or are you still basically writing
Serially?
chapters with a hook to keep
Yeah,
you
yeah,
going?
I can't stop. That's what I do.
Well,
I have to know
it's-
that I'm bringing
it's
them
very
along
good.
with me.
But you would be disappointed, wouldn't you? And I'm sure Chekhov would, if your reader didn't smile during the course of a chapter.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the other.
And sometimes laugh out loud.
That's the other aim.
Yes.
And I like a tear or two, sometimes in the same paragraph.
Oh.
If you can deliver that, you've got, gold.
Now, there are not many laughs in Letter to Mama. Michael Mouse's
No, I don't think there is a
coming
laugh
out
in
letter to
there.
his mother, but I cannot read that out loud or silently without sobbing. It just, I know exactly what moment it just hits me in the stomach. And you wrote that classic very quickly, didn't you?
45 minutes. Wow. In the office at the Chronicle, because Anita Bryant had just hit the news. It was in the news. It was coming over the wire services that she was
Yes.
organizing.
Anita Bryant was a famous anti-gay campaigner in the late 70s,
You
for
know who
anyone
she is.
unaware.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know who she is anymore,
And isn't
which
that
delights
great?
me. Yes.
Isn't that
Yes,
great?
isn't that good?
It's like having to explain who Mary Whitehouse is.
Right.
Yes.
But yeah, so I was angry and moved to do something. It was very much the way it was for you with Clause 28, when you just
Yes.
you've reached your
But
limit
you
and
know,
you know it.
the blessing of the God of writers. Who is the God of writers? We ought
Depends
to know
on-
that, don't we? But blessed you that day, because you said now you're a perfectionist and it takes you time to
Yeah.
polish and hone and get it right. But then that just poured out of you.
Well, because I had something to say. I'd been practicing it for 15 years.
I see.
What I would say to my parents, And it was especially, that part about it's the light and the joy of my life.
That's
Is that the place?
That's the moment.
Would it be really awful if I admit that I do the same thing?
No.
It's a deeply manipulative piece of work.
Well, don't worry about that.
The big thrill for me was when Ian first led me into the Grapes, because I don't recall that I'd ever been there.
Ian's
Well,
pub in London.
It's a
His
pub, an
pub.
East End pub that I have an interest in.
And took me upstairs
Oh, yes.
to that room
Where Dickens had been.
where Dickens had been.
Yes. That's exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it was exciting. It was very exciting.
And sometimes you go to Shakespeare's birthplace in Stratford, so-called, and I feel nothing at all. But I do feel when I go in the upstairs room at the Grapes that, I can see Dickens being here because his godfather lived close by. I felt the same going around Chekhov's house in Moscow. It says outside, Dr. Chekhov. He was a doctor. And you think, I do sense, not ghosts or anything, but just, that although thousands of people must have been through there and removed all actual trace,
Yeah.
there's something about these places. What's this to do with nothing? But so, is there going to be an Armistead birthplace tour eventually? I mean,
The hospital's been torn down.
oh dear. But there could be easily an Armistead Maupin tour of San Francisco.
Well, there sort of is.
There is. So what? Tourists are taken around the places?
Yeah, it's called Tours of the Tales.
Oh, lovely. Have you been on it?
I have.
And did they get it right?
Yeah, oh
Most of
yeah.
it, yes?
He's more thorough. He knows more about me than I know about me. So
Extraordinary.
yeah. He lives in Albuquerque too. No. Larry Rhodes is his name.
But Barbary Lane is still there.
Macondry Lane, that was the model for it, is kind of heavily trafficked with tourists, which I feel a little bad about, but not too much.
No.
And many of those tourists might be looking for Mrs. Madrigal, but what they actually find is tech multimillionaires
Well, exactly.
because of real estate in San Francisco.
It just burns my ass when I see these real estate ads that say, a real Tales of the City charmer. because they've got, you know,
Oh, they used your.
they use the mythology. I mean, they use the, if it probably has a little garden on the side or something, and on Macondri Lane itself, they go for $2 million.
Just for an apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the same place. When I wrote about it, you really could find a wacky landlady on Russian Hill who was taking in tenants for less than she ought to be charging them.
And you're in Britain now. I believe that you had a 5-year visa when you first came here last year. Would you like to stay longer?
Yes, I'd like to be a citizen.
How can we make this happen?
Our friend Michael Cashman is helping me in every way he can.
Is he?
Great.
Perhaps if you had something nice to say about the Prime Minister, it might
May have
oil
blown.
the wheels somewhat.
We'll have to figure what that is.
Or perhaps he'll be gone by then.
It's possible, yeah.
So you're happy here?
Oh, I'm very happy here. Every morning, Chris and I just turn to each other and say, aren't we lucky? Aren't we glad we did this?
Isn't that good?
We pat ourselves on the back because Chris had to, you know, do a lot of work to get this, to figure out how it works. Our friend Louise, who's living up in Ireland now with her husband, she moved, and she told us about the whatever they call it, the talent visa.
Could you have done this on your own?
Found out these things? No, I think that I had some good friends helping out.
Yes.
But we are so happy to be here, and we don't take any guff from people who say, "Oh, you left San Francisco and you moved to London." Yes, we did. You know, Laura Linney would be here full time if she could.
Would she?
I think she wouldn't mind my saying that.
Yes.
But then she wouldn't be able to do more series of Ozark, and
We
for
want her
one,
to never
need
stop.
it. It's important she's there.
Unbelievable. Wasn't it this last season? Unbelievable.
Yeah. Ian, do you ever think about moving somewhere else?
No, I've made the move. I came to live in London, and I've been in my present house for over 40 years. So that's the move I made. If I were to make another move, it wouldn't be to go abroad, although there are plenty of places I'd feel very happy. I think almost anywhere in Italy and New Zealand. But probably if I were to move, it would be back to where I came from, really, the north of England. And I do like the countryside there, and the accents, and the attitudes. And I have a lot of friends from my childhood who didn't come to London. So, but I've done so much travelling that it's a relief to me not to do it. It sounds a bit precious,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
no, I understand.
Do you ever miss your own childhood accent? Because you kind of got rid of it deliberately when you were training to be an actor.
It was ridiculous. I used to put on what I thought was a standard
RP.
yes, received pronunciation it's called, or Queen's English it was called for a time. Well, my goodness me, if we all talk like the Queen. But I did a bit, and it was all to try and be accepted in a world that was a bit strange to me, namely London. But of late, without me noticing it, I've not bothered, and the accents come back a bit. It's funny how easily you can revert to the accent of your childhood. And I'm sure people are being questioned and tortured the moment at which they start speaking in their native accents. You probably got them. It's there. But I got excited about living in the UK after the Brexit vote, because I thought, well, what everyone thinks, this is it now. We're more on our own than we have been in the past. In that case, let's look at what we are and decide, are we happy about what we are? Because now we're in a position to change things if we want to. And I was beginning to think how I could function in that, and I thought, well, one way of binding the country together is for artists to be seen all over the place. And I thought, why doesn't the Edinburgh Festival go on tour, rather than just for 3 weeks in Edinburgh? Why doesn't it go around the country? Why can't it belong to everybody? Why don't the proms travel? Well, they do, because they're broadcast on television and radio. But actors could get out on the road, and the arts, which is so important in this country, could be a binding ingredient into the mix. And then along comes COVID-19. Well, the impetus, I think, at the end of it might be even more so to what is it that makes a country a country.
And that would be nice.
And how can we contribute to it?
And maybe there are opportunities after COVID for change in terms of the arts, in terms of how things are done and how things are brought to people and performed in different ways.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone is more, people in the arts are much more alert to that side. I wouldn't call it a responsibility, but seeing how one can be of use and connect. Yes.
I saw the difference between our countries. Ian and I were in New York during 9/11.
We were.
I was at the Soho Grand. I'd just attended the memorial service of my editor, and I was supposed to be on Flight 93. I didn't take it because it was too early. My lazy ass didn't want to get up.
I didn't know that. Wow.
But I got up and opened the curtains in time for the planes to hit. And I was a wreck by the time Ian said, well, come up, it's lovely uptown. People are walking in the streets, and
Yes.
and there was an ash settling over where I was.
Oh, yes.
And you got a little cross with me because I was such a mess. You said, well, you've forgotten that I had to live under a steel plate until I was 5 years old. Is that an exaggeration, or was it an actual plate?
Well, it was a table made of iron or steel, and it took up the whole of the room, and you ate at it, but I slept under it in case the house fell on top.
During the war?
During the night, yes, but yes.
But America hadn't had an in-country, terrorist attack.
No, it was much more upsetting for locals than observing it from the outside. But
And he invited me up to the Broadhurst Theater, I think it was, where he was in rehearsals with
Dance of Death with
Helen Mirren.
Helen, yes.
And I sat there in this darkened theater, the only person in the back because it was just a rehearsal. And I felt like this is a temple. This is the closest thing to a church that I could ever be in. Yeah,
yes.
That's the comfort of the theater.
And the show really kind of did go on after 9/11 with Broadway getting back on pretty soon afterwards.
Well, Ian at the time said, we're doing Dance of Death. That'll pack them in.
Well, it did, and it did.
It did.
The island of Manhattan was closed. Talk about lockdown. You couldn't get onto the island, you couldn't leave it, you were trapped. That meant there were no tourists. That meant the hit shows that had been running for years and depended on tourists, you could walk into, there's nobody there. We were the newest play in town, and the local audience who loved the theatre
went to do it.
packed it out because they'd seen everything else. So we did very good business, yes, with not an appropriate play, but what is an appropriate play?
What play or what performance do you look back on with particular fondness or nostalgia? Are there any that you wish you could just go back into?
When the job ends, it does. And you're pulled apart because you don't want to leave the new friends you've made or the new routines you've got used to. But of course, now you're out the house and there are pastures green elsewhere, so you're in two minds, negative and positive. But I don't look back and think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to be doing that all over again?
Except Hamlet.
Well, yes. But interestingly, that wasn't my idea, but I've gone along with it. Yes.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Sean's had a lot of great ideas over the years.
He has. Yes. Have we run out of things to say to each other?
Possibly.
You're looking very good, Armistead, but you are such a handsome man. And such a
Bless you, darling.
Armistead has been cooked for so beautifully and has been
my
posting
husband fixed
photographs.
my hair before I left.
Well, he did a good job.
It hasn't looked as
job.
good in weeks.
Do you not cook yourself?
Oh yeah, I can.
So what's your specialty?
When I cook, pot roast.
Oh, lovely. Is that with lamb?
No, with beef,
Right.
potatoes, carrots, onions,
Onions, yes.
slow cooked.
Oh, yes.
Mm-mm.
Melts on the tongue. Oh, yes.
And you're sort of a
Pudding man.
pudding man.
I'm good on jellies and crumbles.
Spotted dick.
No. No, I don't bake. That's serious.
Yeah, that is serious.
Getting a cake to mixture. Now, yes, but the trouble, I'm not eating very well because I on my own, waiting till I'm hungry. That's not a good idea because then you get hungry for your favorites, which might well be a bacon sandwich, which isn't perhaps the right nutrition. Not every day.
Do you order food in? Are there delivery people?
No, on the whole, I cook it. And I have a nice friend who shops for me. I've not been in the shop for a long time.
Have you had visitors come to the house and sit outside and see?
Yes, occasional visitors who sit outside, yes. Yes. I suppose that's all right. I mean, the rule of isolation is easy to understand, isn't it? It's when you're told, well, be alert. But
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Be alert.
That's
That was
frightening.
That's what brought Johnson down. Be alert.
It bothers me that the days go by quickly. I mean, at least at the end of today, I'll be able to say, well, we did a show at the Crazy Cock, and I saw Armistead in the flesh, although I wasn't allowed to touch him.
I know.
So you've not seen each other at all during lockdown?
Only on FaceTime.
Yeah. Which I like.
I do too.
You can see the person.
Yeah.
Everyone always looks very relaxed. And there's no discipline about what you're wearing. You know what I mean?
It works.
You really are getting through to the person. Whereas if you're just on the phone, you can never be quite sure
whether they're making faces or
whether they're making faces or
Or typing?
yes, maybe writing a novel.
masturbating. There's any number of things they could be doing.
Hopefully not that. How far have you got with the new Tales book?
Oh, now you can.
I mean, 40,000 words, 60, 20?
I'm not going to tell you.
I need a publication date. I think people watching will need
7 chapters. How's that?
Right. Okay.
That's good.
Very short chapters. No.
But it also sets a precedent because when the last in the series came out, The Days of Anna Madrigal, you said then this is the last in the Tales series. You've now gone back on that and gone back in time. It now means you
I've
can
gone
go
back to the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
You can go back earlier and fill in gaps in between some of the other books.
I could. I don't think I don't think I have that in me. I think this is going to be it, but I always think it's going to be
This is Cher's farewell tour again and again.
That's right. That's right. She's the queen mother of that.
Does the impetus to carry on come from within you, or is it a response to people's needing more tales of the city? Do you feel you're writing, you have a responsibility to your audience?
A little bit. I get, if somebody says that I do, I get very,
Yes.
I'm not here for that.
No.
But, yeah, I don't know.
But does it cross your mind, oh, they'll love that?
Yes,
Yes.
it does.
Yes. Well, we do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember what the audience is like. That must be so hard for you, though, to not have the response.
Well, that's why filming isn't very easy, because there isn't any response except the sound of the director saying, cut, had enough, no more, cut. That's not what you want to hear.
And then you don't
want to hear somebody saying, go on, more.
Brilliant.
Cut.
And then you don't know which shot the director
don't.
and the editor will choose.
You can be pretty sure they'll be the wrong ones.
Really? Do you often think, I would have gone from this take 2?
Yes, but of course, months later, you can't really remember what you did.
Right.
You can get the wrong impression of what you did. Yeah.
And I guess also you may not even, well, you may not always be the most objective judge on your performance. And maybe sometimes a director sees something that
you are too subjective, and yes, what would appeal to the actor isn't necessarily what the audience needs to see and hear. No.
As well as Hamlet, what other types of work or roles would you like to do when you can?
Wildly popular. In the theatre. I mean, I hope I get back to the theatre before I can't, because it is very special. But I do think it's going to be almost a year, probably more, isn't it? Well, that we've not been able to have things as normal. It's been like an enforced retirement, and I haven't altogether disliked it.
But this must be the longest.
I feel sorry for people at the outset of their careers, whatever it may be, who just need this. This was the year in which they were really going to get going and find out how to do it and enjoy themselves in a new way, maybe. And they've ever been robbed of that. But that's true all over the world, and people have to take some, not comfort from that, but at least acknowledgement that we are not. No man is an island entire of itself.
Oh, it's amazing,
Ever that
really.
True.
If Facebook, I have a friend in Africa, and I look at what they're doing in their particular town about lockdown, and they're reacting in the same way.
Yeah.
Showing that we are.
And this is the longest you must have gone without performing.
Yeah.
That's a strange
but it
thing.
is.
It's what you do, and yet you don't do it. And I wonder what that's like for you as a human being to not do the thing that you do.
Well, it just reveals to me what I've always known, that I'm a really lazy procrastinator.
Oh,
And
we have that in common.
If I could put off writing that letter or having that necessary confrontation, it gets about 6 o'clock in the evening, I think, that's something for tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that's what's great about lockdown.
But the trouble is, you are always in, and if somebody calls you, you can't say, "Oh, well, I just nipped out," because they know you're sitting there.
Last year, Armistead, you went on tour, a whole series of live events, being interviewed in front of an audience and getting that immediate response from an audience that actors normally do.
Yeah.
But this is about you and your work. I wonder if that experience how that affected you and how it's affected your writing, because you do get that immediate response.
Well, when I wrote the memoir, I tried it out in a saloon in Provincetown.
Oh, like a comedian will try out their jokes on a small audience first.
Yeah. And my editor kind of called me on it because it was a line that I was especially proud of. And she said that this probably works very well with a room full of drunken bears. But it's a little coarse on the page.
As that how you put it.
What was the line?
It's about Kurt. I was talking about how I always pick pop songs that I can connect to an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And able to be able to look back on them years from later and conjure it up. I still have songs in my head from when I visited London when I was 19. Mm-hmm. And with Kurt, the song was "If" by David Gates and Bread. If a man could be two places at one time, I'd spend the end with you, and blah blah blah. And when my love for life was running dry, you come and pour yourself on me. And I said, as a matter of fact, I did 3 times, or he did 3 times or something. It worked really well in the Bear Saloon.
Did you keep it in the book?
No, it's not in the book.
Oh.
It's not even in that course. There's far worse.
Sometimes when you have a lady who's your editor, you...
Less is more.
I have a really great editor, actually. But anyway, maybe we should go. Is it time?
I think it is.
I think they're running over.
Any final thoughts for today on our lockdown conversation?
Is that what it is? Every conversation's about lockdown, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that Armistead is writing another book, and that's been his part response to current events is inspiring, ought to be. And when I get home, I'm going to be less procrastinatory and look to the future.
Don't use me for that. Just ask Chris how procrastinatory I am.
Can we leave that, do you say? What do you say? Oh yes, we'll deal with that later. But and he says, shouldn't we be doing something? Do you say, you go and do it, darling?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of luxurious to be in lockdown because precisely because of the fact that you've got all the time in the world.
Yeah. Yes, if you're not worrying about earning a living or worrying about the kids' health.
And the way I earn a living is by...
And not with an abusive partner and all the horrible things that
we're
many
so
people
lucky in that regard. And you have a sort of logical family right there in the house is next to you. He has people that are dear to him.
Yes.
Just can pop over.
I don't touch them.
I know.
I've not had a hug since March the 15th.
Nor have I. Don't look at me like that.
Well, I suppose we could put gloves on and masks and froth through the plastic, could we? I don't know.
Froth through the plastic.
But that can have quite a big effect, the lack of human touch, because it's a huge part of well-being.
It's a big part of Ian's life.
Well, that's why
mine.
people have animals, isn't it? And you get... Well, of course, you've got a husband. So
I've got a husband and a dog.
And a dog. Yeah.
Well, for anyone watching, after lockdown, there is Hamlet to look forward to, there is a new Tales book to look forward to, and possibly a new play written by Ian, a two-hander about 2 famous people, the identity of whom is secret for now.
That I will get out of him the minute we leave here.
Yes.
And we could all be back in the West End of London at the Crazy Coqs, where I've had many happy evenings, because it's small enough to see everything that's going on without binoculars.
Yeah, it's a great room.
It is. It's lovely. Nice acoustic as well. Yeah.
And on that note, thank you both very
Nice to
much,
see you, Patrick.
Ian McKellen and Armistead Maupin.
Thank you, Patrick.